Travis Hunter and DeAndre Swift are out, among many other players being out, and this is the reason I always wait until Friday afternoon to go through every matchup to identify the must-start and sit defenses for the week, and we're doing it for Week 9. And I'm one of the only fantasy YouTubers who covers defense multiple times a week, so make sure to go down there, drop a like on the video, and subscribe to the channel to show your support. Now, getting into our first matchup, it's another normal matchup. We don't have any overseas matchups to worry about for the second straight week. Hallelujah. San Francisco 49ers going to New York to play the Giants, and I think they're both playable. Listen, the Giants obviously are losing a big piece with Cam Skattebo, and realistically, you take away Skattebo and you take away Malik Neighbors, they don't have much going for them offensively. But I think of the other side of this coin, and the 49ers offense is going to be missing, in all likelihood, Brock Purdy and Ricky Pearsall again. As of the time of this filming, that injury report has not come out yet, but it is expected that they're both not going to play in this game. The way I look at it is this. The Giants defense, I do believe that they have talent, and I do think that the 49ers, with that offensive line, will be letting through some pass rushers to Mac Jones. I do think that that's going to happen, so for that reason, the Giants are going to stick inside my top 12 because I think that they'll get enough pressure and probably force a turnover or two on the 49ers, particularly with Mac Jones. And the 49ers, listen, there comes a point, and I've been discussing this over the weeks, there comes a point where you reach the line of diminishing returns when you're throwing guys like you and me out there. Me, Ryan Podner, and you, John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt. If they're throwing you out there on defense at an NFL level, it's not going to go well. And that's what the 49ers experienced last week against the Houston Texans. So I do think that they are not the best play. But again, the Giants offense is definitely weakened at this point. They've lost energy without Cam Skattebo. It could go very well for them. So I do think they're both playable, but I would prefer to play the New York Giants. The Los Angeles Chargers at the Tennessee Titans is our next matchup, and I think it's pretty obvious the Chargers are obviously a must-start. The Titans are obviously a must-sit. I mean, listen, the Chargers defense, they've got their own problems, and I don't think that their ceiling is ultimately that high, and that's why I only put them at 3 in such a good matchup this week. Their defense is weakened. Khalil Mack, by the way, has been back. I saw someone refute that in the comments. He's been back for a little bit now. Khalil Mack being back is good. But they've got a lot of issues and a lot of other injuries they're working through as well. But ultimately, it comes down to this. The Tennessee Titans are not a real functional operation right now. It looks so bad in Cam Ward. I want to root for the guy, but he looks terrible. He's not making good decisions, and he doesn't have help around him. So you stay away from the Titans defense, and you play the Chargers defense 100% of the time. The Minnesota Vikings defense is going to Detroit to take on the Detroit Lions this week. And I think it's kind of similar to the previous matchup. Not that the Vikings don't have talent. They clearly do. They've got plenty of talent on that roster. What it essentially comes down to here is J.J. McCarthy making his return to the lineup in this particular spot. That's a brutal one for him. I mean, Minnesota, they don't know what they are. I mean, their offensive line isn't very good right now. They've got injuries. Their running game is ineffective. And they're playing the Lions defense, and that's a really tough matchup, even with all the Lions injuries that they've sustained on the defensive side of the ball. That defensive coordinator over there, he's fantastic, and they've recovered very well without Aaron Glenn. I think the Lions are going to actually hold the Vikings to no more than like 10 points, I think. I don't think J.J. McCarthy has it in him this week. I'm playing the Lions defense. And I will say this, in a divisional matchup, things can get weird. And I do often see a lot of times matchups that in theory should not be weird matchups. They turn out to be that case. So I do think the Vikings, it's an ill-advised play, but I think it's possible. If you're in a 16-man league, or if you have guys in your league who keep 2 defenses at the same time, I do think the Vikings defense is playable in this particular spot because I do believe that their defensive coordinator over there, Brian Flores, is still good. He's obviously just dealing with an offensive problem right now, which is ultimately the reason I wouldn't want to do this, but I do think it's possible to do it if you are in a deep league or if you're in a league where people keep 2 defenses on their roster. Dropping down to our next matchup, the Atlanta Falcons at the New England Patriots. You know, I was thinking about it earlier today, and just when you think the Falcons are about to be terrible, that's usually when they've done pretty good. So that's the only thing that gives me pause with this one, and having the Patriots defense inside of tier 1 this week like they were on my defense ranking video. I do worry about it a little bit because I do see the path here that the Falcons can come back and score some points. I mean, they're expected to get Drake London back. They're expected to get Michael Penix back. They definitely could be a stronger offense and just a more explosive offense in general. But I do ultimately just think this. When you factor in the injuries that the Patriots have not suffered, knock on wood, they're very healthy right now. And the way their team is rolling right now, I'll take the better coach, the better healthy team. I will take the team that's rolling right now versus a team that has no consistency whatsoever. And I'll play the Patriots defense and stay away from the Falcons because their defense, yes, they've been good in spots, but they're very injured right now too. And the Patriots offense, that's not an offense you want to put a defense in front of in fantasy because that offense is scoring at will this week. And I will say this, I do think that some of these defenses that we're going to go through and we've already been through are probably on waivers for a lot of people. And if you haven't locked up your defense this week, you need to use our automatic waiver wire tool to do that because always what happens after the priority claims run through, there's a mad dash to the waiver wire at 3 a.m. to pick up the remaining free agents for free. Our process automates that so you can sleep through the night, wake up to an early text from your buddy saying, how did you beat me on the wire again? And they're pissed off while you have a good night's rest. That's what our automatic waiver wire tool does. And that's dropped from $8.88 a month to $6 per month. We dropped that so anybody in the world could be able to access this for an affordable price. That was the reason that we did it. And we're also giving you access to my top 250 rankings on a weekly basis for that same price, and the comparison feature and the league sync-up feature. League-winning features you're getting for $6 a month. You need to hop in on that today.
This is Ted. Look at him. Ted desperately needs to pick up a new running back, or his fantasy team is toast. For the 3rd year in a row. And losing his season again means one thing.
Oh no.
Don't be Ted. Use Fantasy Football Roundup to automate your waiver pickups and rest easy this season. Huh. Look at him.
Now, going into our next matchup, I've got the Indianapolis Colts at the Pittsburgh Steelers this week, and I do think the Colts are ultimately a good play. Like, the Steelers' offense actually is not the problem. It's actually far from the problem. Their red zone efficiency has been really good this year, and Rodgers is not playing bad football. The problem ultimately is that they're not explosive enough and they're not consistent enough, and the Colts defense, Lou Anarumo, I've been kind of talking about this for weeks. Him going over to the Colts has completely changed that defense. They already had talent. They just needed a DC, and he's a great defensive coordinator who just didn't look good last year with the Bengals because they don't have the same talent. When you give them a team with talent, this is what can happen. The Colts defense is talented, and they're also smart. So what they're going to do is they're going to attack the weakness of the Steelers' offense, which is the offensive line. That's actively getting weaker, by the way, with some more injuries to the offensive line. So the Colts, even if the Steelers put up 20-plus points, I do see them having a good fantasy day because they're probably going to get at least 3 sacks in this game. I'll take the Colts defense as a play, and I will say this. I'm actually happy as a Steelers fan, a cynical Steelers fan, that the rest of the world is picking up on the fact that the Steelers defense, led by Mike Tomlin, by the way, keep the defensive coordinator out of it. This is Tomlin's defense. They suck. I'm glad the world is waking up to this. But I will say this because I feel like I'm obligated to. I watch this team every single week. I've been watching them my entire life. What they do is they still create turnovers and they get after your quarterback. Now, they haven't done it lately, but I will not rule it out, especially in a must-win back against the wall type of matchup like this. I think they're playable. Not my favorite play by any stretch of the imagination. Cannot imagine playing the Steelers defense with the other options in my top 12 this week versus the best offense in football right now, realistically. But I will say, I do think they're playable, and they might surprise you this week. Now, our next matchup is the Denver Broncos at the Houston Texans, and they're both really good plays. Denver's defense is a really good play. They've actually moved up in my rankings this week because I just think ultimately, when you look at what happened last week, right? The Texans looked pretty good offensively, and they looked good against the Ravens a couple weeks ago too. What happened in those games was that those two pass rushes couldn't get after C.J. Stroud. This is the best pass rush in all of football. Not the AFC, not the AFC West, in all of football. It's the best pass rush there, and I just cannot see them staying out of that backfield. I mean, the Texans' offense is going to give up a lot of pressure on C.J. Stroud, and that's been their Achilles heel this year, is when they can't protect him, they can't move the ball. So I think the Broncos' defense this week is going to hold the Texans to a few points, and I also think that they're going to get tons of sacks and probably some turnovers too. The Texans' defense, on the other hand, look, there's a reason the Texans opened up the week favored in this matchup. Brutal place to play, and the Texans' defense is very good. Now, the Broncos' offense looks like they're starting to click, right? And I would back that up. But I will say this, nothing quite like a defense like the Texans to come in and kind of wipe a lot of progress out, because they can do that. They can definitely do that. That's a strong defense over there, and I think the Texans probably get after Bo, and they probably force some turnovers too, because they're physical, they're mean, and they will get after your quarterback. So I think that both defenses in this matchup are very strong plays, both of them still inside my top 12. Now, our next matchup is the Chicago Bears at the Cincinnati Bengals, and they're both playable, but I've got a lot of questions in this one because we're going to be missing some guys. DeAndre Swift has been ruled out, which means Kyle Monangai is going to carry the load. So, by the way, he's a pretty good start this week at the running back position. But I don't think that this is a great thing for Chicago's offense because it takes away their explosive elements in the running game. And the reason the Bengals, I actually think, again, ill-advised play, I would play the Steelers over them, but I think they're playable. I do. And the reason I say that is because their defense is trash. You don't have to convince me of that. I know this. But the reason they're playable is because the Bears' offense hasn't looked good. Caleb Williams is definitely struggling right now. He's turning the ball over right now. And if they don't have a very important piece of their offense, which they don't this week without Swift, I think problems can arise. So I don't think that the Bengals are a great play. Do not mistake them for being in flexible category when realistically 99% of the time I will not play the Bengals, but I'm also not in 15 to 18 man leagues. And I don't play in leagues where people have two defenses on the roster at all times. I don't play in those leagues, but in those leagues, I think the Bengals are playable. And obviously the Bears are playable too because they actually have a good defense. And number two, Joe Flacco is expected to play as far as I've seen. But I guarantee you, this is his throwing shoulder he's having a problem on. So if they get after him and they sack him even once on that shoulder, it's going to be a problem. So I do not think that this is going to be Flacco's best game. Obviously, throwing his, every time he throws, he's going to feel it. And if he gets hit, he'll feel it even more. So I do think the Bears are still playable. And of course, I would play the Bears defense over the Bengals defense. The Carolina Panthers at the Green Bay Packers is our next matchup. And Green Bay, that feels relatively obvious. It's just kind of a bad matchup for Carolina. And listen, Rico Dowdle is expected to start. I do think that actually could hurt the Packers defense a little because their defense is not as great against the run as many may think. Like, they're great against fantasy running backs, but the run defense, they let up some yards. So I do think the Packers could get scored on a couple times, but ultimately the Packers pass rush is coming together and the Panthers offense is too inconsistent and just not talented enough for me to not consider the Packers a top 5 play this week. And then the Panthers defense, with the evolution of this offense with Christian Watson back, I'm staying far away from that defense. The New Orleans Saints at the Los Angeles Rams is our next matchup. And the Rams defense, this one feels obvious, is a great play. They're coming off the bye week. They're still my number 1 ranked defense. They have not moved at all. And because their pass rush is dominant, the Saints are not good offensively. Even with Tyler Shug, they're not going to be good. And that's the thing, is the quarterback change is probably a lateral move more than anything, but honestly, it could be worse. Like, it really could be worse. And I do think that they won't be able to hold up pressure, and they won't be able to prevent the ball from being turned over to the Rams, and they're just not going to score. From all angles, the Rams are a good play. And the Saints, from all angles, are a bad play. Their defense sucks. The Rams will put up points. They're coming off a bye week. Stay away from the Saints and play the Rams defense. The Jacksonville Jaguars at the Las Vegas Raiders. Listen, I actually think this could be an upset. I think the Raiders could win at home. And for that reason, I've got the Raiders defense in play. They are not a great play. Again, do not hear what I'm not saying. They're not a start defense, but they are playable. Because I do think that there's a chance, if you have a gut feeling on this matchup, I don't mind playing them. Because the Jags offense, they're now without Travis Hunter, who got put on the IR. And I was furious when I heard about this. They put him on the IR. And they're just one less weapon down. And Brian Thomas Jr. hasn't looked good. Travis Etienne hasn't looked good lately. So I don't see a world where it's impossible to conceive the Raiders defense being a solid play at home. I really don't. They're both coming off a bye week. None of them have the advantage over the other. So, yeah, the Raiders have been bad, but the Jags haven't been great lately either. So, I do think the Raiders are in play. But obviously the Jags, it's a pretty much like easy play because the Raiders have been turning the ball over. They're not scoring. They look dysfunctional. So I am in on playing the Jags defense. But if anything, I could see this being a low-scoring matchup where the Raiders pull out a win and they end up being a solid defensive play this week. So it's a weird one. Honestly, this is probably one of the weirdest matchups of the week to me because I think the Raiders are in play here. But obviously the Jags defense is the better play in this one because the Raiders have been turnover prone by far. The Kansas City Chiefs at the Buffalo Bills matchup of the week. Do not play your fantasy defenses in this one, but play every single option on offense for fantasy football. The Seattle Seahawks at the Washington Commanders on Sunday Night Football. This one could be interesting as well. Jaden Daniels returning in this game without Terry McLaurin. I don't expect the Commanders to do well and to put up enough points to beat the Seahawks because the Seahawks offense has been good. And that's one of the reasons I wouldn't play the Commanders defense because I actually don't think the Commanders defense is that bad, but the Seahawks offense has been really good. And they're coming off the bye week healthy. Like it doesn't line up very well for the Commanders in this one. So I'm not playing their defense, but the Seahawks defense either way. This is one of those defenses that I think is always playable. I would always be willing to play the Seahawks defense. They're a great defense. And in this matchup against Jaden Daniels, I mentioned this earlier in the week. It's a problem when you can't stay healthy and stay in the lineup. I love Jaden Daniels more than the next guy. Honestly, I could tell you that. I love Jaden Daniels. But it's a problem. This is a second-year quarterback who hasn't had as much time on the field this year because he's been injured. And he's missing his top weapon too. I could see it going haywire for the Commanders offensively. I think the Seahawks, either way, are too good of a defense to not play in this one. The Arizona Cardinals at the Dallas Cowboys, our last matchup of the week, and thank God there's not a overseas game or a doubleheader on Monday night this week. We get one game on Monday night to watch, and it's this one, and I think it could be high scoring. I mean, I'm not going to play either defense. I will tell you this. If Jacoby Brissett was playing, honestly, and I don't know how Cardinals fans feel about it, but honestly, if Jacoby Brissett was playing and it's expected to be Kyler, I actually fear that offense more than I fear Kyler's offense. I actually considered putting the Cowboys in playable territory. They're right on the border. I'm going to sit them because their defense sucks. It's not good. And that's the reason, ultimately, I decided against it. But I will tell you this, they were close. And I'm not playing the Cardinals defense, obviously, because the Cowboys offense has just been way too good. So I'm not taking any chances there. So let me know what your situation looks like on defense for Week 9. And if you want to see the full top 12 defense rankings on the week, click on this video right here.